A violent wind tore across the silent halls of the castle, rattling torches against stone walls. Queen Elara staggered as a hidden door creaked open, revealing a chamber long forgotten. Prince Alistair clutched his sword, his eyes wide with disbelief as a whisper hissed into his ear. A maiden's scream rose from the haunted forest, echoing with unearthly dread. Queen Elara cried, "No, this cannot be real." Her voice trembled as she turned toward a mirror shattered by unseen force. Alistair's sword slipped from his grip, clattering to the cold floor with a metallic cry. In the distance, the bell tolled, each strike heavy with doom. The cursed night. Dorian pressed his hand to his chest, feeling the burden of chains unseen. Shadows writhed along the walls, mocking every breath, as despair grew stronger. Dorian awoke in the aftermath of the chaos, his body trembling under the weight of his curse. His breath was sharp, his eyes hollow as he whispered, "I was never meant to be the savior." The silence pressed down like an iron shroud, broken only by Queen Elara's cry still echoing in his ears. He looked at the sword lying on the stone floor, a reflection of his failure staring back at him. Shadows stretched long and sharp, whispering with voices only he could hear. Dorian pressed his scarred hand to his chest, the wound of the curse burning though no blade had touched him. He feared not for his life, but for the kingdom unraveling with every toll of the bell. Queen Elara stumbled into her chamber, her emerald gown dragging like chains across marble floors. She clutched her chest, whispering, "He has taken everything from me." Her crown slipped, no longer a symbol of power, but of emptiness. Tears threatened, but pride held them back, her spirit refusing to collapse. Golden drapes swayed, relics of past glory now mocking her pain. On the dresser lay a shattered locket, glowing faintly in candlelight. She touched it with trembling hands, whispering to the absent love that once gave her strength. Silence consumed the room, heavy and suffocating. Her heart was stolen, but the fire of vengeance now burned in its place. The whisper returned, slithering through the corridors like smoke. Prince Alistair froze as the words breathed, "Truth cannot stay hidden." His knuckles whitened around his sword, though his heart faltered. He shouted, "Show yourself," but silence answered with cruel patience. Dorian pressed against the wall, listening to the voice that clawed at his mind. The cry of Queen Elara drifted faintly like a reminder of betrayal's weight. A torch flickered violently, shadows stretching unnaturally across the stone floor. The whisper coiled again, "Love is the blade that cuts deepest." Alistair stumbled back, terror etching his features. The castle grew colder, as if recoiling from a truth it could not contain. The great bell tolled again, each strike rolling through the kingdom like thunder. Its sound shook stone walls, carried to Queen Elara in her chamber, and to Dorian in his torment. Villagers fell to their knees, covering their ears in horror. Queen Elara whispered, "It begins." Her eyes reflected despair, though her crown gleamed faintly. Dorian lifted his head, muttering, "This curse will consume us all." In the haunted forest, the maiden clutched her torn dress and whispered prayers to unseen guardians. Prince Alistair stood frozen, his sword a weight of guilt in his hand. The bell's toll bound them all, weaving destiny with sorrow's thread. Dorian sat alone in the ruined chapel, the air thick with dust and silence. His hand pressed against the scar across his cheek, as his breath shuddered. He whispered, "This curse will end me before it ends the darkness." The broken stained glass scattered colored light across his face like shards of judgment. Queen Elara's cry still haunted his thoughts, yet guilt bound him more tightly than chains. He closed his eyes, seeing memories of battles where comrades had fallen by his side. Shadows crawled across the walls, stretching long and heavy, whispering that he was unworthy. His heart ached, beating with both fear and defiance. The kingdom demanded salvation, but he doubted he was strong enough to bear it. The weight of the curse pressed deeper than steel, crushing both body and soul. In the courtyard, Mentor Alden stepped from the shadows, his eyes carrying the weight of centuries. His silver hair gleamed under the pale moon, and his staff tapped softly against the stone. He said, "The curse is not a chain, Dorian, but a key." Dorian glared, whispering, "A key to what? My ruin?" Alden's gaze held sorrow, yet also wisdom shaped by regret. The torches flickered, as if listening to the old man's words. He raised his staff, inscribing a faint circle of light upon the ground. "What you fear is what you must embrace. The truth will not hide forever." Dorian turned away, torn between rage and hope. The night thickened around them, pressing silence heavy and absolute. A storm gathered above, as though the world itself waited for his choice. The loyal companion Rowan rushed into the courtyard, his boots splashing through puddles from the rising storm. His youthful face was determined, though fear shimmered in his eyes. He called, "Dorian, I will not let you face this alone." Dorian shook his head, voice bitter, "You know not what you offer." Rowan clenched his fists, his humble tunic soaked by the rain. "Then let me be your shield, even if I break." Mentor Alden watched silently, the torchlight glinting against his solemn eyes. Rowan's loyalty burned brighter than fear, a spark of courage in the growing night. The rain drummed harder upon the stones, each drop striking like a promise. Though Dorian turned his face away, a flicker of hope stirred within his cursed heart. Lady Seraphine entered the hall, her presence commanding silence as her cloak swept across the marble floor. Her eyes, deep with sorrow and fire, locked upon Dorian. She said softly, "The curse may bind you, but it does not define you." Dorian's breath faltered, words caught in his throat. Rowan glanced at her with awe, whispering, "Who is she to speak with such certainty?" Alden lowered his gaze, knowing truths he would not yet share. Seraphine's hand brushed the hilt of her blade, not in threat but in promise. She added, "I have fought shadows of my own, and I will fight yours." Her words hung heavy with both comfort and danger. Dorian stared at her, torn by a pull he did not wish to feel. The silence deepened, filled with both dread and longing. The storm thundered as the four figures stood together, bound by destiny yet divided by fear. Queen Alara's cries echoed faintly from the distance, her pain a thread tying them all. Mentor Alden's staff glowed faintly as he said, "The path is set, though the ending is not." Rowan raised his chin, defiant despite his soaked tunic. Lady Seraphine's eyes met Dorian's, fire and sorrow entwined. Dorian whispered, "I will carry this curse, but it will break me before I break it." Lightning split the sky, casting the courtyard in blinding light. The toll of the great bell returned, shaking the stones underfoot. In that moment, fate's grip tightened, binding hearts to a destiny they could not yet escape. Their journey had only begun, and betrayal still lingered in the shadows. King Malric sat upon his throne of obsidian, his hands curled like claws over the armrests. His eyes, dark as midnight, burned with hunger for power. He whispered, "They will bow, or they will break." His voice echoed through the empty hall, carried by banners that once represented hope, but now draped in despair. Flames in braziers hissed, shadows dancing across the vaulted ceiling like specters of war. A cracked crown rested upon his brow, its edges jagged like his heart. He closed his eyes briefly, remembering betrayal that had forged his cruelty. The chamber grew colder, as if the stones themselves recoiled from his presence. His ambition was no longer survival but conquest. He rose, cloak dragging like smoke, and declared, "The queen's heart is mine, and through it I will rule." In the council chamber, Lord Varric leaned forward, his smile thin and sharp as a dagger. He spoke softly, "Dorian trusts me still, and that trust will be his undoing." His words slithered across the table, where maps of battlefields lay scattered. He wore polished armor, gleaming as if to mask the rot in his soul. The flickering candles revealed the hunger in his eyes. A shadow passed over the room as he added, "I will lead him where his curse devours him." His companions nodded, though unease lingered on their faces. Varric leaned back, mask of loyalty restored, expression calm as stone. Yet in his heart, ambition grew like fire, waiting to consume friend and foe alike. Beneath the old oak tree, the guardian spirit Kalen appeared, his form shimmering with pale silver light. His eyes, ancient and knowing, regarded Dorian with sorrow. Kalen said, "The curse you bear is bound not by chains, but by choice." Dorian clenched his fists, whispering, "I never chose this." Rowan stood nearby, watching with wide eyes, his heart pounding at the sight of the spirit. Kalen's form wavered like mist, his voice steady though distant. "The path ahead is carved in sacrifice." Lightning flickered in the distance, thunder rolling across the hills. Dorian lowered his gaze, burden heavy yet unbroken. The guardian vanished into the night air, leaving only silence and fear behind. In the flickering shadows of the great hall, Queen Elara stood before a circle of advisors. Their voices clashed, some begging retreat, others demanding war. Her hand rose sharply, silencing them. She said, "This kingdom will not fall while I still breathe." Her emerald eyes glimmered with both grief and fire. The crown upon her head no longer felt like a burden, but a weapon. She thought of Dorian, of Alistair, of Rowan, and of Seraphine, and her heart ached. Yet her resolve hardened like iron. The torches snapped, casting light upon her determined face. Betrayal had stolen her love, but it would not steal her strength. In that moment, the queen became more than a victim. She became a force to be feared. That night, Dorian's sleep was torn by a vision. He stood in a field of ash, the sky burning red above him. The earth cracked open at his feet, spewing fire and smoke. From the flames emerged a figure cloaked in shadow, holding Queen Elara's heart in its hands. The voice hissed, "You will fail them all." Dorian cried out, reaching forward, but his body would not move. Rowan's voice called faintly, distant and fading, "Wake up." He fell to his knees as the shadow raised the heart high, laughter shaking the heavens. Then, silence. Dorian woke in cold sweat, clutching his chest, the dream's fire still burning in his veins. Rowan's breath came ragged as he stumbled in the training yard, his sword clattering from his grasp. Rain from the storm still clung to his hair, dripping into his eyes. He whispered, "I am not enough. I never was." Dorian stepped forward, voice firm yet heavy with doubt. "You stood beside me when all others fled. That is enough." Rowan shook his head, anger and shame warring within him. "I am only a shadow among giants," he cried, fists clenched. The torches hissed in the wet night air, casting flickers of gold on his trembling face. Dorian's gaze softened, yet the silence between them grew heavy with unspoken fears. In Rowan's heart, loyalty burned, but so did the fear that he would fail the one he swore to protect. Lady Seraphine stood by the balcony overlooking the storm-washed courtyard, her silver armor catching glimmers of lightning. She whispered, "I was bound once, as you are now." Dorian's eyes narrowed, sensing hidden truth. She turned, emerald eyes blazing with grief. "The man who cursed you. He cursed me too, but I broke my chains at great cost." Rowan froze, stunned by the confession. Seraphine's voice cracked, but her hand never left her blade. "I carry the scars still, though you cannot see them." Dorian's chest tightened, anger and kinship colliding. Silence pressed in, broken only by the rain striking stone. The secret she had held finally bled into the night, binding her fate with his. In the candlelit library, Mentor Alden sat alone at a table, strewn with ancient scrolls. His hand trembled as he traced the faded ink of a prophecy he once ignored. His eyes glistened as he whispered, "It was I who failed before, and the kingdom burned for it." The door creaked, and Dorian stepped inside, hearing the weight of his words. Alden looked up, shame carved into his weathered face. "I trained another once, long ago, and I led him to ruin." The flames flickered, throwing shadows across the shelves. Dorian's voice cracked. "Then why guide me?" Alden lowered his gaze. "Because I see in you the chance to undo my greatest sin." His sorrow filled the room like smoke, binding past to present. King Malric raised his arms before the obsidian altar, his voice booming in dark incantations. The air shimmered as crimson fire coiled around him. He declared, "Let the earth tremble at my will." The stone floor cracked, sending sparks of flame into the air. Shadows bent unnaturally, writhing like serpents obeying their master. His eyes glowed with malice, yet behind the fire lurked the memory of betrayal that had broken him. "The queen's heart will make me whole again," he roared, power shaking the hall. The braziers roared, feeding on his rage. A darkness older than the kingdom stirred, answering his call. The world beyond his walls seemed to shiver, as though fate itself recoiled from the storm he unleashed. Within the queen's private chambers, Prince Alistair faced his mother, the weight of betrayal heavy in his eyes. Queen Alara whispered, "You knew, didn't you? You heard the voice first, Gaudio." Alistair's hands trembled, sword at his side. "I thought it would protect us," he confessed, his voice breaking. Her emerald eyes filled with anguish. "You betrayed me not with blade, but with silence." Alistair fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Forgive me, mother, I never meant." His words collapsed into sobs. The bell tolled again in the distance, mocking their broken bond. Alara turned away, her face carved with sorrow and steel. Love and betrayal clashed within her heart, each wound deeper than the last. The council chamber grew silent as Lord Varric stepped forward, his armor gleaming in the torchlight. His eyes burned with triumph as he laughed coldly. "Did you think me your ally, Dorian? I was always Malric's hand in the dark." Dorian's jaw clenched, fury boiling, but the betrayal struck deeper than any blade. Rowan shouted, "You swore to fight with us." Varric sneered, "I swore to win, and your trust was my weapon." Seraphine's blade rang free, her voice trembling with rage. "You will pay for this treachery." Varric only smiled, as if betrayal itself was his crown. The shadows seemed to embrace him, sealing his allegiance with darkness. In the obsidian hall, King Malric raised Queen Alara's heart, now encased in a crystal of crimson fire. He roared, "Behold, the pulse of a kingdom!" The heart glowed, its rhythm shaking the walls with every beat. Alara collapsed in her chamber miles away, clutching her chest with a strangled cry. Dorian felt the curse flare like fire under his skin. Rowan stumbled, whispering, "He is using her love as a weapon." The crimson glow expanded, casting shadows across the kingdom's skies. Malric's laughter thundered, each note binding the land in despair. The queen's heart was no longer hers alone. It was his instrument of war. Dorian staggered to his knees in the rain-soaked courtyard, the curse searing through his body like molten steel. He gasped, "I cannot carry this. I was never meant to." Rowan knelt beside him, his face streaked with tears. "You are stronger than you know, even broken." Seraphine stepped forward, her hand trembling as it hovered near his shoulder. "Your strength is not in your curse, but in your choice." Dorian clenched his fists, fighting tears, but doubt carved deep wounds in his spirit. Lightning split the night sky, illuminating his despair. The bell tolled again, each strike echoing his fear of failure. In the ancient library, Mentor Alden raised his staff high, the runes etched into it glowing with golden fire. His voice cracked with pain as he whispered, "Take from me what I failed to give before." The flames consumed the staff, splintering as power surged into the air. Dorian shouted, "No, you cannot." But Alden smiled faintly, sorrow and peace mingling. "This is the price of wisdom, my boy." The room shook as the old man fell to his knees, strength leaving his body. The magic tore through the curse's chains, giving Dorian a fleeting breath of relief. Alden collapsed, his sacrifice burning brighter than any torch. His last whisper lingered, "Now you must walk alone." The kingdom trembled as crimson fire spread across the skies, the ground splitting under Malric's command. Villages burned, rivers turned to ash, and bells tolled with hollow despair. Queen Alara staggered to the balcony, her gown torn, her crown hanging crooked. She whispered, "My people," before collapsing into the arms of frightened servants. Dorian, Rowan, and Seraphine stood at the castle gates, watching flames rise on the horizon. Rowan muttered, "This is the end." Dorian clenched his sword, eyes blazing with grief and fury. "No," he said, voice breaking. "It is only the beginning." The night itself seemed to bow to Malric's dominion. The fall of the kingdom had begun. The castle courtyard erupted into chaos as Malric's forces stormed the gates. Rowan fought with desperate courage, blade clashing against armored soldiers. He shouted, "Dorian, do not give in!" Dorian's curse burned, his veins glowing faintly crimson. Varric emerged, his treacherous grin cutting through the storm. "Brother against brother, ally against ally," he jeered, striking with ruthless precision. Rowan blocked the blow but faltered, pain flashing in his eyes. Dorian roared, his voice shaking stone, "No more lies." Seraphine charged into the fray, her sword blazing silver against the dark tide. Lightning split the sky, illuminating loyalty and deception locked in savage battle. The clash of steel echoed like the toll of fate itself. Within the shattered throne room, King Malric stood tall, obsidian crown gleaming with fire. Dorian staggered inside, his breath ragged, sword shaking in his hand. Malric's voice thundered, "Cursed knight, you are mine to break." Dorian spat blood, whispering, "I am no one's slave." Malric raised the crystal heart, its glow scorching the air. Queen Alara screamed in the distance, her pain echoing through him. Malric lunged, striking with power like a storm. Dorian parried, though each clash shattered stone beneath their feet. Sparks lit the chamber as the two forces collided, darkness and cursed light. The kingdom's fate trembled on the edge of every strike. Amid the chaos, Lady Seraphine stood torn between love and duty. Her eyes locked on Dorian as Malric's power threatened to consume him. Rowan called, "Help him, or we are lost." She whispered, "If I choose, I betray my oath." Her sword trembled in her hand, reflections of fire dancing across her armor. Dorian turned briefly, their eyes meeting across the battlefield. "Seraphine, whatever you do, do it with truth," he gasped. Her heart ached, split between devotion to him and loyalty to the realm. She lunged, striking down Malric's soldier, yet her tears fell unseen in the rain. Her choice was made in silence, carving wounds deeper than any blade. Dorian turned sharply, searching the chaos for Alden, but the old mentor was gone. Only the shattered remnants of his staff lay across the ground. Rowan shouted, "He gave all he had to free you." Dorian's chest heaved, grief rising in waves. Seraphine whispered, "You carry his hope now." The silence where Alden once stood weighed heavier than steel. Dorian clenched his sword tighter, voice raw, "I will not let his sacrifice be for nothing." Lightning struck outside, illuminating the hall in flashes of white and shadow. Alden's absence became a force, pressing Dorian forward where retreat was no longer possible. Bloodied and trembling, Dorian raised his sword high, curse searing through his body until his veins glowed like fire. Malric sneered, "You are nothing but my broken weapon." Dorian's voice rose above the storm, "No, I am the end of your reign." The hall shook as he embraced the curse instead of fighting it, the power blazing through him with defiance. Rowan and Seraphine shielded themselves as the air erupted in light and thunder. Malric staggered, fury twisting into fear for the first time. Dorian advanced, each step echoing like a drumbeat of destiny. The cursed knight was no longer bound. He was fate itself. The throne room quaked as Dorian and Malric clashed, each strike shaking the castle's foundations. Sparks flew as cursed flame met obsidian power. Malric snarled, "You are but a shadow of my will." Dorian's voice thundered, "I am no shadow. I am the light you cannot kill." Rowan darted forward, shielding Dorian from a deadly blow, his loyalty unbroken even in despair. Seraphine struck down soldiers that poured into the hall, her eyes never leaving Dorian's side. Malric's laughter rang, cruel and hollow, but fear flickered in his gaze as the curse surged brighter within Dorian. The hall groaned like a dying beast, walls cracking under the fury of their war. Destiny had arrived, and none could escape its hand. Malric raised the crystal heart high, its crimson glow spreading like wildfire. Queen Ilara collapsed in her chamber, her hand clutching her chest as agony tore through her. She whispered, "My heart, my love." Dorian roared, striking with fury. His sword clashed against Malric's hand, shattering the crystal in a burst of blinding light. Ilara gasped, breath flooding back as the bond was severed. The heart pulsed once more, free from Malric's grip. Dorian stumbled, nearly consumed by the unleashed curse. Rowan shouted, "Hold on!" as Seraphine caught him before he fell. The chamber filled with silence, broken only by Ilara's faint whisper carried on the wind. "I am whole again." Malric staggered, the shards of the crystal falling from his grasp. His eyes burned with rage and sorrow as he cried, "All I wanted was to be whole again." Dorian advanced, his glowing veins flickering like embers. "You lost yourself long before you stole her heart," he said. Malric lunged desperately, but Seraphine blocked his strike, her sword locking with his. Rowan dashed forward, slashing across Malric's side with a cry of defiance. The king roared, collapsing to his knees, his crown slipping from his head. Shadows recoiled, abandoning him as his strength drained. His final breath rasped with bitterness, "Betrayal. It is all I ever knew." Silence followed, heavy and final. The flames dimmed, leaving only ruin in the wake of battle. Queen Ilara stepped into the throne room, her emerald gown torn, her crown askew. Her eyes met Dorian's, filled with sorrow and gratitude. She whispered, "You brought back what was lost, though it cost more than I wished." Rowan stood bloodied yet proud, his youthful face hardened by war. Seraphine lowered her sword, her gaze heavy with unspoken pain. Dorian fell to one knee, exhausted, whispering, "It is done." The silence pressed upon them, broken only by the distant cries of survivors. Victory had come, but its weight was crushing. The kingdom lived, though it would never be the same. Night fell quiet over the broken castle, the storm finally spent. Dorian stood upon the balcony, his scarred face turned toward the stars. Rowan leaned against the wall behind him, silent but steadfast. Seraphine stood apart, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Queen Ilara joined Dorian, her voice soft. "You saved us, but at what cost to yourself?" He said nothing, only gripping the railing as the curse flickered faintly within him. A single bell tolled in the distance, its sound neither doom nor victory, but something in between. Dorian whispered into the night, "This is not an end, only another beginning." The stars shone cold, and the silence lingered, leaving destiny unresolved.